Hello and welcome to Acoustic Review. My name is Ben Morgan Brown and today I'm looking at the RSE 2255 Richie Sambora signature double neck from Ovation guitars. This guitar features a select spruce top with modified Ovation X bracing, a super shallow double cutaway lyricord body, dual 5-piece mahogany maple necks with ebony fingerboards, a 42.8mm nut for the 6-string and a 48mm one for the 12-string, and both necks have a 643mm scale length. The guitar comes with the Ovation OP24 Plus preamp and dual pickups installed, features the signature Richie Sambora star inlays, ships with a hard case, and has an RRP in the UK of £2,352. So let's have another listen to the guitar now, and then join me afterwards for my thoughts. The first thing that struck me about this guitar is that the case is massive. I suppose there are essentially two guitars in it, but it's huge and I'm not sure I'd want to be carrying it around to gigs on public transport. Once I got over that shock and opened the case, I have to admit that I did have a little chuckle to myself. There's something so over the top about a double neck acoustic guitar that I couldn't help but smile, and I had to take photos to text to all my guitar playing friends. It's definitely a guitar that starts a few conversations. The gloss black finish, gold machine heads and star inlays all shout rock star to me, but I also really like the wood details around the sound holes, and even though it's not exactly a look I'd choose myself, I do think the guitar is very cool looking, although I was a little bit disappointed to see that Ovation haven't included any leather trousers for the full rock star experience. The fit, finish and build quality seem good, and it's particularly pleasing to see a gloss black guitar arrive without a single swirl or polishing mark in the finish. However, running my fingers up and down the neck, there are a few fret ends that feel sharp, which is a shame and the only thing that stops me giving this guitar full marks. It's something that any competent tech could rectify, but I really think a guitar should arrive from the factory with smooth fret ends and shouldn't need extra work in that respect. I think it's fairly obvious that this guitar has been designed with live performance in mind, and considering that, I wasn't expecting it to be the most resonant guitar unplugged. However, once I'd managed to work out how to actually hold it, I was surprised how loud it was. The double width body cavity obviously helps with the low end, and it has a nice punch with a mid-focus tone that emphasises the chime of the 12-string. I also think the shallower body and bowl back design add a little compression to the sound, so the tone is quite controlled, and a bit like a pushed tube amp, the guitar gets in the zone without you having to play too hard. And once you're in that zone, the compression helps keep things smooth without any notes jumping out of the mix. You do get ringing from the other neck when you're playing, so that does give the impression of more sustain, and you gain a bit of extra resonance from the other strings. But it also meant that styles that rely on muting suffer a bit from interference from the other neck. Plugging the guitar into my acoustic amplifier, I was pleasantly surprised by the amplified tone, which surpassed my expectations. There's a hint of quack and rubberiness on the bass strings, and these might be more apparent on the directly recorded tone, but overall I felt the plugged-in sound was punchy and full through the amp. The 12-string side of the guitar sounded particularly good to me, in fact. The preamp is simple to use with some well thought out settings such as a mid-frequency shift that took out some boom on the 6-string neck and handled some harshness on the 12-string. You have a switch to go between each neck and also the ability to keep them both on at once if you wanted those ringing overtones, or to be able to quickly switch between 6 and 12-string playing, for example. One thing I'd really like to see with this guitar would be the ability to run a stereo out and send each neck to its own EQ settings, etc. I guess this would be easy to do with a pedal board setup, but it would add an extra layer of usability if it was built into the preamp. Aside from that though, I have no complaints on the plugged in tone of this guitar at all. One thing I could complain about though is that this guitar is really quite big, and for me I found it very cumbersome to play. I'm quite short, about 5'6", so that obviously makes it awkward for me, and sat down at least I just couldn't quite get it in the right position to be able to play comfortably. Standing up and using a strap I did find it easier, but it's worth noting that the guitar is pretty neck heavy, so a good wide strap with a bit of grip helped keep it from diving towards the floor. Aside from that playability concern though, both necks have a comfortable round D profile, thick enough to feel the hand but not so thick that they feel chunky. The string spacing on the 6th neck, although narrower than I normally play, was fine for strumming chords and single notes, although I did have to concentrate a little more in finger picking in order to play cleanly. I found the spacing on the 12 string a bit more tricky, and as you can probably tell from the playing demos, I was catching adjacent strings with my left hand and causing a bit of buzz. I don't regularly play 12-string guitars, so I'm sure it would be something that I could get used to given a bit more time with the guitar, and I'm also sure there's lots of players out there that could pick up the guitar and play it cleanly with no issues. The action seems a tiny bit high on the 12-string neck, and this perhaps was also adding to my clumsiness, but setup and string spacing etc. is such a personal thing that I wouldn't want to criticise it too much. It didn't work very well for my hands, but it might be perfect for yours. Signature guitar models quite often split opinion, and just because your favourite artist uses a particular instrument doesn't mean it will work for you. Obviously a big part of the market for this guitar will be fans of Richie Sambora and his work with Bon Jovi, but is there room in it for other players' collections? If you regularly need a 12-string and a 6-string in a live situation, then clearly this guitar is a convenient combination of both of those, and it will provide you with a consistent plugged-in tone and makes it very easy to switch between the two during the gig. I also think there is the potential for some experimental players to use both necks in their playing. In fact, I witnessed one player do a great version of the Beatles' Come Together on a double-necked Ovation at the 2020 NAMM show, so there is the potential for using this guitar outside of a classic rock situation. With a retail of £2,352, this is not a cheap guitar. It does appear to be available for under £2,000 from some retailers, and when you consider that you are in some ways actually getting two guitars, it doesn't seem as bad, but I still think a lot of players will balk at the price of what is for many a pretty niche guitar. However, aside from custom-built instruments, no other double-necked acoustic guitars spring to mind, so I think those interested in this model just have to accept the premium attached to it. This is a somewhat unique guitar, and in some ways it's quite hard for me to come to a final judgment on it, as it's so far out from what I would normally play. It's got a standout look, an unexpected resonance unplugged, a good plugged in tone, the endorsement of a highly successful musician, is built by a company with reputation for great plugged in guitars, and it will be a showstopper and conversation starter whenever you put it out at a gig. If you've got this far into the video, you probably already have an opinion as to whether it's an instrument you could make good use of, and if it ticks the right boxes for you, I think you'd be very hard pressed to find a better guitar for this role without spending significantly more money. I hope you've enjoyed this video from Acoustic Review. Please subscribe to keep up to date with new videos, and I look forward to seeing you next time.